Hey guys, how you doing today? Uh, on my way home, just picked up some groceries. Figured time to do a recording. What the hey? I'm getting really terrible at. I'm not terrible at, or I am terrible at uploading to this Instagram thing. You know, it's odd having a whole bunch of different channels and a whole bunch of different things to funnel this information onto. But you know, everybody says you got to do this stuff. I just need to remember to do it. Oh my goodness. So I mean, the big thing that's kind of banging around this day, people have just sort of accepted that Biden's won this thing, which I think is pretty accurate. Like the separation between him and Trump in Nevada is larger than it was when they called Arizona in favor of Biden, right? So everybody knows the election is over. Trump would need a literal miracle at this point to win this thing. I think that the media really is just sitting there looking at Fox News and basically saying, you know what, this is your ball, you guys can run with it. You're the ones who, if we start to call it, if we start to say Nevada is for Biden, you're the ones that are going to push back. You're the ones that are going to fight in favor of Trump. So we're going to let you do the honors, and we're going to let you be the ones to say that Donald Trump is no longer the president of the United States. The Trump administration, of course, is dragging their feet, is fighting as hard as they possibly can, is doing everything they can to really dig their heels in, pretend as though the end result was because of some kind of vote rigging or some kind of malfeasance. I mean, and don't get me wrong, dude, there's malfeasance, for sure there is, but there's malfeasance on both sides, right? The Republicans have been as shady as the Democrats in regards to their electioneering, and that's all it is, right? It's just gamesmanship. It's just a song and a dance, right? I've said it over and over and over again, right? This is a tiff between two wings of a one-party system. And the parties, the wings of that party, the business party, tend to agree, right? The only real difference between a Joe Biden and a Donald Trump is that Biden isn't petty, right? Like Donald Trump is the worst version of a, well, not the worst version, but a bad version of a capitalist, right? Donald Trump is just this kind of greasy, self-interested, petty, tiny individual. And people have been really pointing it out. Like recently, one of the things that went viral was John McCain's concession speech when he lost to Obama in 2008. And people really pointing out how he accepted his defeat with dignity, with grace. And my favorite part being that when he mentioned Obama, the audience would start booing, to which John McCain would be like, no, no. And he would quell the audience's dissent, which you see the seeds of Trumpism there. You see that there are people who are more than willing in all occasions, no matter what, are wanting to pull out the sabers and really start rattling them. And it doesn't matter that they've just been defeated. It doesn't matter that they just lost. There's no sense of a desire even for any kind of unity or anything. That it's that tribalism that exists within the human heart, that desire to split off into little groups and to not self-reflect and not think about what could we do better, but to simply consolidate power underneath your little umbrella. And it's this tribalism that the American system is, that the corporate class is exploiting, right? It's this tribalism, this desire to have a team and defend your team against anyone who isn't on your team or isn't perceived to be on your team. And because of this sort of tribalistic way of being, it's very easy to divide and conquer the populace. As long as the populace is fighting itself along, red versus blue, it'll never actually organize itself to fight along the lines that it should fight along, which is rich versus poor. Those are the lines by which the society divides itself, truly. Because the reality is that the Republicans and the Democrats are both, the party of the rich, right? And if the poor actually organized themselves, they would overwhelm the entire system because they outnumber the wealthy by large margins. And this is becoming obvious in Canadian politics as well. And it looks to me as though the new conservative strategy moving forward is going to be to appeal to the working class, to say to the working class that we actually do have your interests in mind. The Conservatives have already started talking along these lines here in Canada, and my response is very simply, if you fall for this, you're gullible, right? But there's a lot of gullible people in Canada and the United States. Like, it's very scary. Like, it's very scary that Donald Trump has as much support as he does in the United States, that the Republican Party generally has as much support as they do in the United States. That's very scary, right? That there are people who are it would be different if it was this sort of like, well, there isn't really anyone to vote for, so you have like weak support. But there are people who are like drawing weapons and fighting for the Republican Party and for Donald Trump in a way that the Democrats don't have. They don't enjoy having this rabid support on this kind of cultish sort of level. And it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. Now, what's scary is that the Democrats are not going to self-reflect. They're not going to take a look at themselves after this election and go, oh wow, we managed to barely eke out a victory against the worst president possibly in the history of our country. Certainly in terms of optics, but also in terms of policy. Like, humanity is facing the largest existential threat that it's ever faced. Like, I'm enjoying beautiful weather here. These days are beautiful. And everybody's walking around being like, yeah, it's beautiful weather. Terrifyingly beautiful, right? It's terrifyingly beautiful. And the fact that the Democrats can't mount a successful campaign, because this campaign wasn't successful. Like, they won the presidency, barely, but they lost seats in the House. They still hold the majority, but they lost seats in the House, and the Senate is still held by the Republicans. It's not a successful campaign, right? And one hopes that the Democrats will stop and think, oh wow, like we didn't make these big gains against the worst president in our nation's history. We didn't make very big gains. We managed to eke out very small victories to rid us of Donald Trump. That doesn't mean anything, right? You're rid of Donald Trump, but you still have the system in place as well as the personalities in place that gave rise to his power, right? Mitch McConnell's still there, There's no amelioration. Like, the climate change denialists are still in power. Everything is still in place. And the Democrats are not going to suddenly realize, oh, what we need to do is start left-wing populism, they repudiate left-wing populism, right? They're not going to suddenly give healthcare to their people. They're not suddenly going to make those decisions to actually acknowledge that we need to do something about climate change, right? So the populace is still facing the largest, like, this enormous problem. I heard it said on the internet, as cleanly as I think it could be, is if 5 people are voting for what to eat and 3 vote for pizza and 2 people vote for let's kill everyone and eat them, well, pizza won, but you still have a pretty massive problem, don't you? And that's really exactly how it is in the United States. And that's a big problem for the rest of the world. And what's scary is that here in Canada, Canadians look to American politics for successful political strategies, right? And if if this election has proven anything, it's that fascism is very popular. That you can win elections and you can run and win with a fascist ideology. And an openly fascist ideology. It doesn't need to be like a whistling or any of that kind of stuff. Like, you can literally just be a fascist and do quite well politically in our political system. Well, certainly in the American political system. And so it's going to lead lots of Canadian politicians to follow suit. Oh, fascism is popular. There are lots of fascists out there, apparently. Let's be fascists and secure the fascist vote. And the left wing, the left wing seems disorganized and sort of fractured, right? Jagmeet Singh recently comes out and he says that we need to tax the wealth that people earned during the pandemic. And my complaint, and the reason why I'm attempting to run my own thing, for my own seat, is his language and his understanding and the way that he communicates his ideas all are still within the capitalist structure, right? That we need to fight. Like, a politician will say something like, I'm going to fight for X. I'm going to fight for a higher wage. I'm going to fight for more healthcare coverage. I'm going to fight for a better education for your kids, that kind of thing. Well, you're going to fight who? Who are you going to fight? And every single time the answer is, you're going to fight the capitalists. That's who you're fighting. Every single time you're fighting the capitalists. And so it begins to raise the question, well, if your enemy is consistently and constantly the capitalists, why don't you start to come up with ideas for how to extract the capitalists from your society completely, so that you're no longer fighting against anyone, but rather having a discussion amongst your peers about the best way to provide what everyone clearly wants, right? Everyone clearly wants a free education for their kids. Everyone clearly wants everyone to have a living wage. Nobody wants homeless people. I mean, unless you're a sociopath. I shouldn't say nobody. There's clearly people who do want homeless people. There are sociopaths in our society. They vote conservative. But any sane, rational person, they don't want homeless people. And so instead of having a conversation about, well, how do we ameliorate this situation and make it so that there are no homeless people in our society, we're fighting against sociopaths. And instead of people like Jagmeet Singh coming up with ideas for how to eliminate these sociopaths from our society, they're just constantly in a perpetual state of needing to galvanize the populace against these sociopaths. It's no way to organize a society, right? And we're going to see what that looks like in the United States as they continue to serve their capitalist class. We're going to see exactly what that looks like. So, that's the end of me, guys. I hope you're doing well out there. Like, share, subscribe, send it around. I love you all. Go meet your neighbors. Go say hello. Talk to them about the craziness that is this world. Empathy, love, and compassion, right? Have a smoke, have a drink. Do your best. I love you all.